Thank you for coming to our presentation, Neon in Nevada, where we'll discuss a project we worked on that was funded by a grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. I'm Amy Hunsaker, the librarian for Music and Performing Arts at the University of Virginia, formerly the Fine and Performing Arts Librarian at the University of Nevada, Reno, or UNR.
Hello, I'm Cory Lampert. I'm the head of digital collections at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
I'm Teresa Schultz, the social sciences librarian at UNR, and I also took over as project lead of the grant after Amy left.
So why neon in Nevada? Well, neon lighting exists everywhere, but it has become something synonymous with Nevada glitz and appears in copious amounts across the state. Neon signs are as Nevadan as having slot machines in our grocery stores and our gas stations. Nevadans are used to seeing flashy neon signs everywhere they go. Whether it's running errands, hitting fast food joints, going camping, getting married, or even flying somewhere else. Anyone who has traveled through McCarran International Airport in Las Vegas understands the prevalence of neon in Nevada. In fact, Nevada's first neon sign wasn't even built for a Las Vegas casino, but rather for a grocery store in Elko. In 2019, enthusiasts and students pushed to have neon declared Nevada's official element. We love neon. We even have a neon museum with millions of social media followers. So let's look at a brief history of neon in the Silver State.
This photo will be familiar to many as the iconic gateway to the city of Las Vegas. While neon is a signature feature people associate with the Strip, it is really an art form and area of study that extends far beyond Southern Nevada. In fact, we have seen researchers from all over the world visit our special collections looking for images and data on the subject, especially as signs and the built environment change over time. Fremont Street is a perfect example to show the transformative nature of neon in Las Vegas. These archival materials tell a detailed story of the conception, construction, debut, decline, and rebirth of the famous Vegas Vic neon sign. The work undertaken by UNLV with partners at the Neon Museum and now across the state has been to preserve and continue to document neon's geographically diverse and changing nature.
In the early 20th century, Reno became famous for being the easiest place in the country to get a divorce. The city hosted a number of celebrities who temporarily resided there, making this little town an international destination, or the biggest little city in the world. These downtown signs reflect and preserve the glitzy Western vibe of early Reno. In the 1920s, Nevada experienced a substantial mining boom, and several gold and silver rush towns exploded throughout the state. As with any boom, the ore eventually gave out and most of the towns shrunk to nearly nothing, or they completely disappeared. Nevada has more ghost towns than any other state, but some of the neon signs remain as testaments of bygone prosperity. Many of the smaller cities in Nevada have been instrumental in preserving neon signs or creating new ones to reflect the glory days of mining wealth or to look forward to the next boom. For example, Elko has experienced many mining booms over the last 150 or so years. Ely, a mining town 200 miles to the south of Elko, is similar. The populations shrink and grow depending on how many mining companies are in town at the time, but unlike boom and bust towns, they have other industries that keep the area alive. As a result, these small cities are rich with neon architecture that has either been preserved or recreated. But to understand the challenge of physically locating neon signs in Nevada, or even the idea of a collaboration between UNR and UNLV, it is essential to understand Nevada geography. The map on the left doesn't just show the prominent cities and towns in Nevada, it shows the only cities and towns in Nevada. To give the map scale, Nevada is 322 miles across and nearly 500 miles long as the bird flies, but you can see that mountains prevent the existence of any straight roads. It takes 7 hours to drive from Reno to Las Vegas. Generally, Las Vegans travel more to LA than Reno, and Renoans go to the Bay Area. So it is all the more remarkable that this collaboration successfully mapped signs in most of the populated areas of the state. And I hope it is clear why a digital repository is much, much easier to access than the physical signs. But why digitally preserve the signs at all? Well, first of all, neon signs in Nevada are often colossal. They're too huge to physically preserve once they've been taken down. They also disappear once a business trades hands or closes. A small portion of the signs make it to private collections or the Neon Boneyard in Las Vegas, but most will simply rust in an empty field someplace. Importantly, though, neon signs are public art that reflect the aesthetics, topographies, and design of a time and place. They are symbols of bygone eras and part of the historical record, and thus deserve to be preserved.
Go back one slide. Imagine as night falls, student assistant Cindy Mercado Rosas capturing this image of the Starlight Motel in North Las Vegas, with the neon nearly bursting out of the photograph. The sign was removed from the landscape with only the digital images to remain just days after she took this photograph. But capturing the images can only serve to preserve the signs if these new digital assets are also preserved. Currently in Nevada, digital preservation is a pressing issue for all of our cultural heritage institutions. Understanding the risk is the first step to finding solutions. And in 2018, UNLV held a statewide symposium that identified this as a key area that state stakeholders are concerned about and want more training to address. While UNLV and UNR are both contributors to the Mountain West Digital Library and Digital Public Library of America, neither of these networks provide digital preservation services. With no shared repository, no common best practices across the state, and very little practical work to test communication and workflows, the state had a prime opportunity to design a project that explored solutions. During the past year, while UNR completed work on the Neon in Nevada grant, UNLV worked to launch a new open source preservation and access repository to act as a robust back end that supports disciplinary digital humanities projects such as the UNR Neon in Nevada website. All Neon survey photos are now integrated with photos, architectural drawings, and data from other archival collections, such as the YESCO photograph collection. Equally critically, all of the digital assets are being preserved with technical workflows that ensure the ongoing health of the collections. The UNLV portal is built with a Fedora backend, Islandora 8 Drupal frontend, and is linked to Amazon Web Services. Foreign digital workflows have been applied to this project, as UNLV is hosting digital objects and metadata for UNR, and we assign the digital assets to the highest level of our tiered digital preservation policy.
So the basic blueprint of our collaboration involved UNR gathering and documenting signs from the northern part of the state and sending them to UNLV for preservation. Dr. Catherine Hepworth of the Reynolds School of Journalism at UNR initiated the idea of creating a repository because of her previous work with students taking hundreds of photos of Reno signs, many of which are included in this collection. In addition, we collected images from the Nevada Historical Society, rural museums and libraries, neon experts Sheila Swan and Peter Laufer, and Will Durham, the director of the Nevada Neon Project, who took thousands of pictures of neon throughout the state. In total, we ingested 2,135 images from Northern Nevada alone. Our project intern, Jay Arellano, created metadata for the images using UNLV's metadata schema for each of the images, and UNR Digital Humanities history professor, Dr. Chris Church, created the website to host all of the content. Teresa hosted events, communicated with institutions, wrote reports, and did all of the outreach. I did the preliminary legwork of lining up the Northern collaborators and initiating diplomatic talks with UNLV before I moved to Virginia.
UNLV undergraduate students photographed 111 signs, taking over 625 total photographs. An additional student assistant cleaned up legacy data for the project and added 951 photos, 74 informational documents, and compliant metadata for all 237 signs. New to the workflow, all digital assets are now ingested into the Fedora repository, where files get assigned checksums that can be used to verify the health of the data when backed up to Amazon Web Services. In addition, there is a new emergency data recovery plan that was tested in anticipation of the launch of the repository this month. The procedure allows UNLV to rebuild the repository in the event of critical failure or natural disaster.
On top of the project's collection and UNLV's new digital repository, one of the main outcomes of this project was to create a website that would allow for more interactive engagement with the photos in our collection. Although we relied on UNLV to house and preserve the images, we knew we wanted to do more with the collection. That's where our project partner, Dr. Church, came in. Dr. Church works a lot in the digital humanities, so his main role in the project was to create the neoninNevada.org website. So here's what the website looks like. The main part can be found under signs, which is where you can browse through the images in our collection. He built this website using an API that connects to the UNLV repository, so none of the images actually live on the website. At the start of the project, Dr. Hepworth had expressed how important metadata was to researchers. She talked about how they needed more than the regular metadata, that there were image attributes they wanted to see as facets they could use when searching. At the same time, UNLV uses the standard Dublin core schema for their repository, which did not allow for many of these attributes to live in their own field. We saw the website as the place where we could feature some of the richer metadata that researchers might need. Most of this metadata was concatenated into the description field for the images ingested into UNLV's repository, but we kept it pulled out for the website so that Chris could build those facets in, which you can see here. They include whether a sign was lit, what time of day, the image, when the image was taken, and when the sign was installed, if known. The website doesn't just feature the images we collected for the Northern Nevada Neon Project, however. It also features some of the neon images that UNLV had already collected from Southern Nevada. We wanted to match the metadata as much as possible for all the images, so Chris had to work on writing computer programs that could pull out that information from other metadata fields, such as the title or description. For instance, we kept track of the address of each sign in a separate field so that we could later create a map of all the images. UNLV had that information in the title field for some of the pictures. Chris was able to pull it out so that we could include their images on the map browsing feature, which you can see here. And you can drill down and then when you hover your mouse over an icon, it will show you what sign that icon represents. Chris actually used computer learning algorithms to create some of the facets. You'll notice that you can browse images by the colors in them. Chris created a program to search images for these colors and create facets based on them. You'll notice if you use the feature that it's not perfect. If we select blue, you'll see this image for the Desert Inn, which is clearly black and white. What often happens in these situations is that there might be a few pixels in an image coded as blue, but that really add up with other pixels to a visually different color. Or the color is in the image, but not part of the actual sign. The computer is not always able to tell the difference, but this does provide some help to researchers and others if they're interested in searching images based on colors. Another big part of our project was to have a day-long symposium that would attract both neon researchers and amateur enthusiasts to learn more about neon in general. Unfortunately, COVID got in the way, so we had to scale back our plans for several virtual events instead. We were really happy with the end result. We created art kits for kids that include stickers and magnets of some of the images in our collection. We were also able to use our makerspace at UNR to engrave some of the signs on little wood blocks, which you can see here, that the students could then color during 3 separate visual sessions or virtual sessions led by one of our project partners, Will Durham, who is also a 5th grade elementary teacher. We also hosted a virtual panel of some of our project partners, along with a representative from the Neon Museum in Las Vegas, to talk about this project and the importance of neon to Nevada's history and culture. The project involved a lot of partners, some of whom had some major life changes take place after the grant began. For instance, Dr. Hepworth ended up in Australia for the entire length of the project, which precluded her from performing some of the grant activities. It also made for a lot of awkwardly timed meetings, as we had partners living from the East Coast all the way to Australia. COVID, of course, caused many problems. As Amy noted, part of the grant paid for a photographer to actually travel across Nevada to take images of neon signs, but we had to delay this work because of concerns with COVID. Although thankfully the low population density of Nevada certainly worked in our favor. We were also fortunate in that most of our work could be done remotely, but it did impact our timeline in having to figure out these new workflows.
Across Nevada, and despite COVID, digital projects continue, but at-risk digital collections do not have time to wait for digital preservation leadership to develop. We acknowledge that digital preservation is challenging, but that shouldn't stop activity moving forward. We found that the Cornell model of digital preservation was very helpful, as it encourages taking a realistic look at what assets your organization has, assessing the current risk to materials and setting priorities. Of particular importance in our organization was collaboratively developing a preservation policy and then getting the policy approved by administration as a priority in the strategic plan. This work acknowledges the need for resources and supports continued work to grow the preservation efforts into a program. It has been especially good to have this in place at a time of such scarcity. It was also easy for us to get stuck in researching technology decisions. But let me say that there is no one digital preservation solution that will fit all organizations. Rather, it's more important to try or experiment in some way, even a small way. Doing an initial risk assessment, starting a small project with the most high-risk materials, or reaching out to exchange information with potential partners are all good starting points. And as in any collaborative project, communicating or over-communicating is key to success and happy partners.
Our initial goal of the project was to really look at the metadata schema that would be more inclusive of the needs of NEON researchers. However, because of the limitations of the grant, our efforts on that were really limited. UNLV needed to work within the normal schema of Dublin Core. We were able to address some of the metadata issues through our website, but of course it's limited to just that, and perhaps doesn't include as much as researchers would wish for. We do think there is potential for richer metadata around NEON science, especially through linked data and Wikidata, but that work will need to be explored in a future project. As Cory said, you really can't have too much communication, especially when a project is almost entirely virtual. And finally, we do encourage you, if possible, to not do a large project during a pandemic, but if you must, go forward with as much grace and patience as possible. Thank you so much for watching our presentation. If you have any more questions that we weren't able to answer, please feel free to email us. And finally, here are some resources you can check out if you'd like to learn more.